Are we live?
Are we live? I think so. It says it. We never know. It's
Ish.
always a guess. It
We
just
never.
working.
We just show up. Well, hopefully we get received.
Oh, that looked wrong.
That was a double. That wasn't a single.
That looked bad. That looked bad. That looked bad. So what's going on today? Where's the cat?
Don't start with them.
Oh,
They're
okay.
there.
There we go.
It looks like John and I are both remote today.
Yes, running
Uh,
around a little bit.
I don't see the sexy elephant, so I am not feeling it. But I guess I get the ravenous
Yeah,
cat.
a little bit more stark today. Not quite my usual stuff.
We are, as always, welcoming everybody to another Wake Up and Deliver Season 2, Episode 27. Time is flying. Jesus, it's having a lot of fun. Um, as always, thanks everybody for joining us. This morning, we're going to start off like we always do with a little bit of John's reactions. Are we ready, John? We want some build up. I don't know if you're doing music or something ahead of time.
I've been researching how to play audio over this. I wanted to see if I could get it set up. I didn't have time yesterday, but I want to get back so we could play our Wake Up and Deliver anthem thing.
Oh, the throwback to Wake Up and Deliver.
Yeah, exactly.
John and that.
There you go. Do you want to yell again?
All right.
Okay, go.
All right. Bringing to the stage our quote of the morning, our brain food. Impatience is an expensive emotion. Every app wants your decision in seconds. Every employer wants results this quarter. Every investment platform profits when you trade. Meanwhile, the boring investor who indexed and touched nothing decades ago owns your neighborhood. Who's winning? The patient inherit everything the impatient leave behind.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of cool, right? Obviously, I think you think about someone like a Warren Buffett or someone right away where like guy just like buys and holds forever. Compared to a lot of other things. I do actually I like that one though because I think it is quite true for the way that a lot of people get stuck with their operations, get stuck with kind of like their solutioning is that they just like they're very reactive. You know what I mean? And can jump around and then it feels like nothing is working, but it's like sometimes the things that work just work, but they're not instant. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's funny because in trucking, especially in logistics, we went from a segment of trucking many years ago in the golden 80s of trucking where the guy would get there and get a window from Tuesday to Friday, and he delivered when he delivered, and he let you know when he let you know, and he got his dispatch when he got his dispatch, and it was the best. Now it's like uh, I don't see him. I see him around the corner. You're supposed to be here 30 seconds ago. What's going on? And it's that instant improvement, but is it an improvement? Because then you get there and you have all these other issues and all these analytics and all this data. But sometimes it's good to just wait for the good things, right?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Actually, it's funny. So, um, you've probably noticed I've had quite a little bit of a hiatus on my newsletter. I've been having like just a harder time trying to find things that I feel are really worth writing about to that level of detail and then quality and stuff. So, but you know that we're both kind of doing some stuff to submit some articles. So I kind of have like this longer form version of what that one is going to be, and I'm taking this whole position around like last mile in particular, just because of the fact that like
Mhm.
it's getting so much attention and pressure when it comes to um, costs and well, like how can retailers do all of these things? And my whole position with this is that basically it's like everything everyone tells you about last mile is BS because it's written by the people trying to sell you something. And like basically here's like the reality of what you really need to do to save money and or to do things differently. Because we're gonna see, because you know what's really interesting to me, and I know we end up talking about like sort of AI and stuff and these things come up, but doing a bunch of research for the article and putting it together with my own thoughts, it's really it's really interesting to see these like very hardline and baked in statements of like, hey, I'm a retailer. Like, let's say I'm a small retailer, I'm a small brand. I need to improve my last mile costs or whatever. And like the way that information will come back, whether you're probably doing a traditional search, but especially if you're using some of these AI systems, and it'll say something like, oh, route optimization and real-time AI optimization is going to help you. It's like, no, it won't. And I'm going to give you an example of why that doesn't help you. No, because this happened yesterday when I was moving. So I'm on the 401, okay?
Yep.
And this is, and sorry, I'm going to just preface this really quick. This is an example of like this AI route optimization, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why it will make no difference, and very often it can make things actually even worse. So I have AI route optimization. I'm driving down the road. I'm on the 401. All of a sudden, there's a slowdown. And these days, you can 100% tell how many people are using navigation, whether it's Google, whether it's Apple, whether it's something else. You can tell how many people do it because as we were coming up to this slowdown on the 401, and for those of you that don't know, 401 is one of the biggest highways in Canada. It's
one
for
of
us,
the
it
busiest
almost
highways
doesn't
in the
get
world.
much better, like in terms of size or whatever, like and whatever. It doesn't, and maintenance, all of these things. So, anyways, all of a sudden you start seeing a bunch of cars peeling off at a certain exit,
It,
and it's a small little exit. Like you can just tell that there's like about 0% reason that many cars are getting off that way, other than to probably circumvent this slowdown. But like here's like the fundamental problem is that yes, that's a real-time reaction. Yes, a system is doing the math on you, but it's also a very moment in time decision, because the reality of what ends up happening is that you push a bunch of traffic off now to avoid a slowdown on a road and an infrastructure that's actually meant for the volume and for the size of the vehicles and everything like that. And you push them into an area that is not designed for it. Yes, it might technically be faster for one car initially when there's no holdups or whatever. But the second that too many cars start getting off, that the timing of the lights don't make sense, the number of stop signs don't make sense because they're not used to that flow of traffic, it ends up creating its own problem, and you very quickly end up with another backlog somewhere else. And if you're a package delivery person, you already have like all of your packages on the trucks. So this concept about reducing costs because of AI route optimization is that, like, at best, it potentially stops you from failing deliveries, and that's really at best. But even then, to your point about this quote, and which is kind of why I liked it, this impatience and this immediate reactivity, it's like, oh, I'm jumping from solution to solution, because you end up getting so much subjectivity now in the system by so many different people. You end up creating problems that were never historically there or never data founded anyway, and you end up in similar problems that sometimes are worse than if you just stuck it out.
system of its own fault as well. What I mean by that is eventually when the AI connects to other AIs and then says, hey, we're going to send 7 cars this way. We're going to send 7 cars at the next exit. We're going to send 7 cars down the other next exit to help alleviate the whole system. Because right now, you're right. It's just like this is a quicker route because right now there's no traffic on it, and 60 cars get off, and boom, there's more traffic there, and now you're stuck. And I've had this happen before where, I was using Google Maps and my friend was using Waze, and all of a sudden the Waze, they took off another direction. Like, where are you going? It says I'm saving 20 minutes time. Eventually, I think we arrived within 5 or 10 minutes around the same time, but it wasn't that like grandeur of the whole like time savings. But eventually, I can see the AI saying, "Hey, certain cars should go certain directions to help alleviate the overall traffic." And the real
Well,
solution
but
is build better infrastructure for everybody, or use a different format of delivery, right? So help reduce the amount of
but
stuff on
here's
the road, which I
here's a bit of
expect
an
someone to jump on in a second and say
but
that.
here's an inherent problem, though, is that I agree with you that that would work, but it really only works when one person is in charge. And I say person very broadly, but I mean one system. So it's like, sure, if the AI is the Borg and and they make the decision for everybody, every car, then I agree that there's like a huge amount of like efficiency. But here's like the fundamental problem is going to be not everybody's going to want to use the same system. Not everybody is going to want to use the same orchestrator. And you know, how ready, like who's going to be the decision maker? Is it Google? Is it Apple? Is it going to be Tesla? Is it going to be the city? And this is where there becomes a real fundamental problem, because the second that you then have competing objectives or competing systems, you start to end up in a very similar point. So anyways, I've got actually a number of things in this article that I think are like myths about like people chasing, sort of cost savings and stuff like that. But the real kind of premise of it is that, delivery these days, unfortunately, in my opinion, has been driven down to its kind of like basic. And I don't think that it's realistic to think that like, oh, my next package delivery person is going to just do it for $3 and then the next one's going to do it for $2.50. Like, people have a really misguided notion of when it comes to economies of scale, and there's some real misguided ideas that every package makes it cheaper. That's true and not true. So anyways, it'll be in the article, but I'm actually taking like the anti-position to a lot of these white papers and all of these sales things that you've seen published all over the place for the last 5 years or whatever.
Well, I'll give you a kind of I guess, a food for thought for that. I saw a interesting article this morning as I was prepping for this call from Linus, the Lithuanian who does all the AI stuff in fintech.
Oh yeah.
Comments on LinkedIn, and he had one about Tesla's new. They did, I think over the weekend or on Friday, they did the very first car delivery fully autonomous with nobody involved in it. So it was
I saw this.
produced,
Yeah.
and it went right to delivery, like 90 minutes down the road to the customer's house and right into their door. So that helps over reduce the overall cost, because normally a car would have to go onto a truck, or the truck would have to take it to the dealer would have to do the inspection, do everything, accept the delivery, then take it and let the customer know, the customer would have to drive. Like there's so much more traffic added to that. And in that article, he kind of wrote out a few kind of interesting points where, think about it, when you need to get to the airport, you need to take a taxi anymore, because the reason you take a taxi is because you want to leave the car at home. You're just gonna take your Tesla or your other autonomous vehicle to the airport. It'll drop you off, and it'll return back home and park. And when you arrive, it'll be scheduled to come arrive, and it'll pick you up. And as you come in, it'll be all timed and everything like that. And it just kind of helps alleviate those kind of challenges. But then he made an interesting point at the end of it. He goes, until you don't pay for your car payment. As soon as you don't make a car payment, the car doesn't move, right? And you don't get what you.
Or even worse, like this stuff that's happening with a lot of these cars now, where like you have even some of these high-end cars where it's like, oh, you want the seat cooling feature, $12.99 a month,
extra $5. Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you, anyone that doesn't think that that's coming is absolutely lying, because these companies like all need to continually capture revenue, and this is like the fundamental problem with our obviously with our economic system, the capitalist system. I'm not anti-capitalist, but I'm saying when you have these massive companies that are then publicly traded entities, and their value is really just about this continued and unending growth, the only way you can really do that is to continue to find ways to capture more and more revenue. So to your point about the Tesla car, they know that it's going to be faster, cheaper, blah, 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 whatever. But they also used to know that they used to pay to get it to the dealership. They used to pay to have it at the dealer. They used to then pay to have it transported, blah, blah, blah. All of these things. Well, that was baked into the price. Let's call it $1,000. I'm not saying that's the real number, but let's say it's $1,000. Well, then, Mr. Customer, it's a deal for you to still get it for just $500. But now that $500 goes to like a company like Tesla, as opposed to 3 or 4 other people each getting, maybe $333 each. So it really is like a big transfer of like the revenue. And then honestly, it becomes very disruptive, because now all of a sudden you have one company getting even more revenue. You have 3 other companies that are essentially going to die. You know what I mean? Like I forget the name, but I had written about it. But who is there was a huge transportation company there that ended up just going bankrupt very quickly last year because of the fact that someone pulled their transportation with them. I forget who it was. I'll have to look it up, the name and stuff like that. But all of these companies then start going out of business.
You talk about Convoy?
No, it wasn't Convoy. It was specifically one that's related to just like car transportation. I'll have to find it. I had written some stuff about them. I just forget their name. But the point being is that now you inherently get these problems where we build up these companies, and kind of tying this into our conversation from a few weeks ago, you end up with these mega corporations that have more and more of the revenue and more of the market share, which then puts people back in a position where they can start jacking up their prices. So it's like they start low, they take the revenue, they take the features, and now all of a sudden there aren't options left that can compete. And you're stuck paying for, oh, you want air conditioning, $199 a month. Oh, you want to heat your car in the winter, $599 a month. Like, you know what I mean?
This isn't exclusive to just newer companies, right? There's a lot of older companies that aren't taking a lot of these changes in this perspective, which is going to lead me into a conversation about Uber Freight and Del Monte. What's it called? Fruit, which is not the fresh fruit one, the canned fruit one.
Yeah, the cans.
Where Del Monte canned food, people are moving away from canned foods, more into fresh foods. And a mega company like Del Monte, with a couple $1 billion, has gone under. And a mega company like Uber Freight with Transplace, the previous customers, now on the hook for millions and millions of dollars, because a lot of these systems that you have in place, you didn't verify the health of your own company. You believe in the transactions. You needed that revenue. You were chasing that revenue, as Uber Freight is, and they needed that volume versus going, hey, in the system as a holistic look, maybe I should be reducing who I'm doing business with, because this segment of the business is really going downwards. And this is a big part of my customer base. Maybe I should reduce how much I'm doing with it. But because there's such a big drive on revenue, like we were just talking about, it's hard for a company to walk away from a big revenue source, even though it's less painful today than losing it like they are tomorrow with a company like that going under. And every company can at any moment go under. People said that about Kodak. Everybody remembers the cameras, the Kodak was like, oh, we don't need, and they invented, I believe, the digital camera. Like, I know digital film's gonna be around forever, which I think film will be coming back because of the deep fakes nowadays. But you know what I mean? Like, you can't, nothing is invaluable. So even some of the companies like Apple right now are struggling because they're behind the 8 ball in the AI systems. And OpenAI does have a dominant position in the marketplace, and certain companies are catching up, but it is not as easy with the technology to be able to get that, because it requires so much energy, and a lot of the energy is placed into other things. Unlike Google, who is already in that virtual tech space, they already have the energy, but they're like Meta and Google, they're buying nuclear power plants to power all these systems, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And it's funny then when you like take it back to like our industry, because I saw a post the other day by Aaron Rubin of Ship Hero, and he was like, I don't know why everyone's talking about consolidation, or like why more people aren't opening up 3PL warehouses, but to me, quite frankly, and I saw Nate Skyver too had posted about like, oh, I thought by this time consolidation and last mile would really be taking hold, and it's still not. I really think we're coming to a tipping point. Actually, I think that this consolidation thing is like, it's like quietly stalking the industry in the background, and I think it's going to start happening very quickly, because the thing is that these companies. Do you know how hard it is to be a really like effective single operation, small footprint 3PL these days? In the face of like all of this technology, do you know how hard it is to be a delivery startup these days? Do you know how hard it is to be a very small transportation provider these days? Because big consolidation from your shipping base, right? Like from your retailers or whatever, also means that they're going to have bigger expectations and whatever. Like there's no big enterprise that really wants to have a scroll of like suppliers and managing all kinds of things and all of these things. You know what I mean? And I
Well,
really think this
we talked about
consolidation.
this in the past as well, where there's going to be 2 points. Remind me to talk about trailers after this, but there was also the fact that more people are moving away. Even if you are using Google, they're starting to use AI to do searches like perplexity and all this kind of aspect of it. And there's smaller 3PLs. If they don't have a footprint in this digital space of, I wouldn't call it advertising, but of awareness, you're going to miss the mark on being able to find out who is the local provider. Because if I'm going to put in perplexity, who should I use in Houston, Texas as my local 3PL? I'm sure it's going to go DHL, DSV, CH Robinson, and it's going to list all the big guys. So if I'm a new startup company of a CPG, uh, that's who unless I know somebody, unless it's my cousin's brother's aunt that has someone that I know, you're going to go off those top hits that I've used my search engine for. And that's why for the longest time, Google SEO was very popular, but people still kind of looked at their local aspect. But I think that's going to go more and more away. These brands, like to your point, are going to start consolidating. But these larger consolidating companies still need these smaller regional ones to help because they don't have a large enough footprint in a lot of these different areas. So I can see that model changing, but it helps reduce that. Oh, well, it doesn't help. It reduces that margin for those other 3PLs where they don't have those nice customers that gives them that nice end-to-end supply chain. The other part is a few predictions, and I saw this from our I don't know if you follow Eric. He has the Beagle software now, and he was talking about, and I thought that was interesting that Q4 we're not ready for it, but it's going to be a huge influx of trailer storages because of this consolidation aspect of all this inventory that's going up, and there's not enough space for it. Where a lot more trucks are going to be utilized for their consolidation aspect of their trailers because there's not enough inventory, and carriers are going to say yes to it because they need that revenue and they think it's an easy way out. So we're going to see a lot more dwell times on trailers, and that's going to create another crunch in the Q4. And I think that's an interesting kind of take that we're going to see, and this specifically in the dry aspect, but I think we're going to see on the reefer aspect as well, because there's not a lot of reefer warehouses as these tariffs that are coming into play, these counter tariffs, all these influxes in the global economy start shifting how we operate on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and when you think about it too, here, yeah, that's a funny point because what a lot of people don't realize is that um, if you're not going to move product, like if it's really going to sit for some kind of period of time or whatever, um, you're right. There's definitely not enough space in warehouses. And here's some other stuff that a lot of people don't think about. Okay, if I have like let's say five or 10 trailer loads of product, and we'll just say it's something super easy, relatively commoditized or whatever. It's it's more or less shelf stable, and ambient's fine, whatever. It doesn't even need reefers, whatever. But like when you bring that to a 3PL warehouse, you're paying to like essentially unload it. You could be paying by pallet. You're then paying to store this product. These 3PLs have limited storage, so it is like a premium, right? Like a 3PL can't just take in maybe 200 pallets for like dead movement, let's say, or like longer term storage. There's some people that do longer term storage, but they're typically different facilities and stuff like that. And then you're paying to touch it, you're paying to move it, you're paying to do this, whatever. A trailer, most people, up until there's a capacity issue, will rent you a trailer for a month fairly cheap. And if you just leave your product on the trailer, as long as you have some kind of secure-ish place to put it, you're going to be paying a lot less. And I don't think the average person realizes how much product sits on trailers all over the place almost all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you have this happen in various products, not just even ambient. Like we used to have bottles for alcohol processing sit for months on end because they don't need it, but they needed to buy it because the production was. They knew the summer was coming, and they don't have enough. You don't drink as much beer, obviously in the wintertime as you do in the summertime, and they don't produce enough in the summertime with the bottles to be able to compensate for the beer. So they have to store all this product, and they don't have it in their warehouse. And the same thing happens to your old playground, ice cream. You don't produce enough ice cream at a certain time of the year because the people obviously in the wintertime don't eat as much ice cream in the summertime, and your production has to be year long. There has to be all this storage and all this other aspect of it, and trailers become a great use of that position when there isn't a crunch. But as soon as a crunch happens, like we saw, it just skyrockets a whole bunch of different aspects, like we saw during COVID, where you needed space, you needed warehousing, you needed trucks, and all these things just kind of circumvented at the exact same time. And then you had all this great big spike in pricing and laxing a lot of the rules that we're seeing the effects of today.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's going to be. I really think that there's going to be some massive challenges when it comes to overall operations execution, as you're going to see people all of a sudden have a really hard time, and whether it's like official consolidation, like where someone actually like buys or whatever, people going out of business. If not, it's going to be essentially selling huge portions, if not all of your capacity, to some of these bigger outfits. Because the big need to keep getting bigger, and they'll throw these big sort of like securities at you, because I think it's fairly easy to say that it's not easy for a small operator to go to the likes of a Sephora, a Gap, a Walmart, Target, whatever, and get a lot of traction. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a Walmart or Target's not necessarily interested in like Dave and his 3 trucks. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't work for them, right? Like, it's too much management and overall maintenance for what they get out of it. Great for Dave, but like, doesn't really matter. So it's interesting. No, but it's true. It's interesting to see like, where things are going to go, and like what the real opportunities are. And I think, unfortunately, these things with like tariffs, I know everyone's kind of tired of thinking about tariffs, but the most important takeaway from this is that it's pretty well established now, even with like this kind of finalized resolution on China, sort of this finalized resolution with Vietnam, that the cost increases in some ways, that they're not going to go away. Nothing's going to go back, like, at least short term, nothing's going back to the way that it was, with all of these loopholes and ways that you could essentially circumvent paying things, and keep getting sort of like cheap goods to market. But at the same time, you have these companies like a Shein, a Temu, even Walmart, to be quite honest with you, whatever, that have continued to grow on being able to meet the consumer need at this point for like low cost goods. You know what I mean? And like, they're going to continue to put like these big cost pressures, but like they're going to be able to do it because they're going to keep leveraging their scale and their size. So it is going to make those, sort of mid-market and smaller players have to be a lot more diligent when it comes to like what they're doing and how they're spending their money and stuff like that.
This is time, John. We're getting conscious. There's a rule of the dock time. It is 9:30.
It is.
It is next week. You are not around.
I'm not. No.
You're gonna
So
be
what do you what
You're not gonna.
what are you doing? Did Kat agree?
I don't know. I let her know yesterday, so hopefully she accepts.
Okay.
And we will carry the show. I'm sure she's listening, so please, Kat.
I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna check. Yeah, I'm gonna check next week.
If you're watching, you can always join us too, John. But no, it's okay. I'm sure Kat will be able to jump on and co-host and help support. But as always, we'll have a fun show next week. We'll be at the same time, same channel. But you're coming back the following week? Is that what we're gonna expect, or do I need to reserve Kat for 2 weeks?
It should be okay, as far as I know, unless all of a sudden, like, travel turns into an absolute disaster. So
there you go. She accepts. We're good. Live on air.
Oh, there we go. See, look, she's laughing and hiding in the comments. There we go. Perfect. Yay. I'm gonna send the little like happy emoji and be like, "Ooh, my guy." I think I'm one of the only people on LinkedIn that does this, and then like everyone's probably like, "This guy is just weird." Sending one.
On that note, thanks everybody for joining. We'll catch you guys next week. And John will be back in 2 weeks' time as he enjoys Portugal on his vacation time. So have fun. I can do a takeover. You know what? Maybe John won't come back.
Yeah, maybe she's gonna be that good.
No doubt. Maybe I can come back after that. Maybe it's the end of Matt. All right, bye everybody.
Bye.
I almost hit the wrong button. I had to leave the studio.